Hello and welcome to the Divorce to Bliss podcast. Here you will learn all things related to healing from divorce, mind, body, and spirit, so you can create a beautiful new life filled with happiness. I'm Rachel Ruby, author of Divorce to Bliss, divorce coach, speaker, and attorney, and I'm so glad you found me here. Hello and welcome to the Divorce to Bliss podcast. I'm Rachel Ruby. And I'm really excited today because this is part one of a two-part series on breathwork for divorce healing. And we're going to focus today on awareness of your breath and how you can use it to help you in your divorce healing process and also in any part of life, really, because being aware of your breath allows you to do that. So my guest today is Linda Vazin, and she is the founder of Breath-Body Connection. Linda has spent over 35 years helping people reconnect with their bodies, release stress, and live with more focus and ease. After working hands-on with the body for more than 2 decades within many modalities, she discovered how powerful the breath is as a bridge between the physical, mental, and emotional self. Her clients have included Navy SEALs, Olympic athletes, Melinda Gates, and many individuals recovering from various injuries. Today, she teaches a variety of breathwork techniques, from calming, restorative practices to dynamic, activating ones used by professionals to reduce stress, improve productivity, and sharpen mental clarity. In her coaching programs, Linda integrates breathwork with cognitive and somatic practices to help clients return to a state of balance and regain the motivation and energy to create the life they truly want and build lives far bigger and freer than they ever imagined. So with that amazing introduction, welcome to the podcast, Linda.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks for having me.
I'm so honored to have you. Thank you for joining me. So let's get into kind of how you started this journey into teaching about breathwork.
So as you mentioned, I worked with the body for many years, and I have a lot of background with yoga therapy, and I used yoga wall to bring people back into alignment, sort of physical therapy kind of work that I did. And I was very familiar with the yogic breath work, box breathing, 4-7-8, meditation. But about 15 years ago, I was going through my divorce, and none of the modalities that I had, yoga, which was life-altering for me when I first started, meditation, they weren't working for me. There was so much fear that my body was stuck in fight or flight, that sitting in meditation was exhausting. I couldn't do yoga because I was up every night. For hours, and physically I didn't feel healthy enough to go to a yoga class. So that divorce really propelled me to try something different. And one weekend I was just browsing on the internet. I'm like, I need to do something. I saw something, I don't remember if it was on social media, but it was on breathwork. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this. I went to a weekend workshop, and they introduced different kinds of breath modalities. So I was familiar with yogic breath work, which was very calming, but my mind was going too fast to be able to, participate in it at that moment. But this kind of breath work that I did, it was dynamic, activating breath work, like holotropic, transformational breath, rebirthing. So it's very fast and activating. It really changed my life. After that weekend, I just walked away so clear. I had the energy and the motivation to do something different. And I decided I'm going to learn how to do this kind of breath work, and I wanted to help people through big transitions. So that's how I got into it.
I love your story. That's wonderful. I love how you took it upon yourself, even in your state of fear and uncertainty, to find something and to go out there and look for something different, because a lot of times fear can paralyze. So I love that you did that. And now you help others. So that's wonderful. And I love that whole pay it forward mentality. So thank you for doing all those wonderful things and helping others. Can you, just for those who aren't aware, what is breath work and how can it help us to heal or get through a difficult time in our lives?
So there are thousands of different breath modalities, and breath work, the difference between breath work and meditation is meditation, you're sitting and a lot of times you are focusing on your breath, but it's just trying to distract you and keep you, from having too many thoughts. Mm-hmm. When people like me that are really active in their mind, and when you're in a state of fight or flight, like I had every worry thought, every negative thought going through my mind so fast that I couldn't sit there. It was more frustrating to sit and meditate. But with breath work, what happens is that there are different breath work modalities. So, for example, you have something to do. For example, box breathing is you inhale for 4, you hold your breath for 4, you exhale for 4, you hold your breath for 4. And then you can slowly increase that. And that calms down your mind. Not only does it calm your mind, but it fully connects you to your body. So I always say this, our mind have very fast frequency. The frequency of the mind is like, we think very, very fast. The frequency of the heart is slower. The frequency of the body is way slower. So when we do breath work and we slow down our breath intentionally with these different kinds of breath modalities, or speed it up. Let's talk about yogic breathing first. When we slow down our breath to the frequency of the body, then our mind starts to slow down. Mm. Then the dynamic activating breath work that really helped me is very fast paced, and you have so much breath coming into your body that energy starts moving through. There's something in physics, they call it entrainment, when the high vibration of the breath goes into areas where energy is stuck and it starts rising that vibration. And I see that happen all the time because, if somebody has had a lot of heartaches, they sort of stop breathing in their heart. And when they come to a breath session and we start breathing, and all of a sudden they start getting a lot of breath into their heart, they start remembering old times and emotions start coming up. And then all of a sudden the energy, literally through crying, through however they need to express it, starts moving, and that energy gets integrated. It's not that you forget it. It's just that you start having a different relationship with it. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes, it's beautiful. And I talk about that a lot, which is, and I think you mean that you're talking about the same idea of holding in those emotions and holding, especially when you go through divorce. It's so easy to do that because you are feeling the fear, you are feeling the uncertainty, you are feeling, just sometimes inadequate, incapable, unproductive, whatever it may be, all those things may be. And we tend to hold those feelings because we want to move forward. And so the brain often will tell us, okay, if we want to move forward, let's just move forward and forget about all that, right? And so it's so easy to do that, but we forget that we have to experience all those things. So when you start doing that, when you're crying and you're remembering or maybe not crying, but just remembering all those things through the breath, you really do start to release a lot of that. And that is what allows you to truly move forward, right? Because if you don't release and let's say you sweep it all under the rug, so to speak, you put away all those emotions and don't deal with them. And maybe you're having shallow breath. Maybe sometimes you breathe normally, whatever, but you're not aware of it. And then you move forward. You try to move forward the best you can. Maybe you start dating. Maybe you start your, this new life you want. But at some point in time, you're probably going to regress and go back to that fear because you haven't learn to be aware of the breath and deal with what's being stored. Right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. You nailed it. Yes.
Yeah.
Bessel van der Kolk, the gentleman that wrote the book, The Body Keeps the Score, he says in order to process an emotion, you have to sit with it at least for 90 seconds. So when something uncomfortable happens, if you actually sit with it and breathe through it, through the peak of that uncomfortable emotion, you're processing it. But we have been taught in our society not to feel. If it doesn't feel good, we need to do something. We either go for a run, or we watch movies, or we scroll, or we have a drink because the feeling is uncomfortable. But if you sit with that feeling and you actually breathe through it, you start having a different relationship with it, versus if those feelings keep coming up, like you said, you just keep shoving it under the rug. Those feelings, it's like holding a ball underwater. It just gets to the point where it's going to pop.
Yeah.
You know, the psyche and our bodies can only hold on to so much. We have to allow ourselves to feel and be. And breath work, I think, is fascinating at how it allows you to process emotional stuff. I mean, I've had people during a breath session remember things from their childhood that they had forgotten. They had no idea that they had gone through a certain kind of trauma or remembering. And through that, they're breathing through it, they're crying, and all of that coming up and out allows so much freedom and space in their life and their body and their relationships.
Yeah, that's wonderful. But let me ask you this question. I was thinking as you were talking that I've done quite a few episodes on the difference between men and women in healing. And do you find with breath work, with teaching and practicing, helping people practice that there is a difference between men and women? And before you answer that, I have to say that in my practice, in my helping people through divorce, healing from divorce, I see a very remarkable difference between most men and most women and how they deal with the trauma of divorce. So I'm curious what you see and how that might affect breath work.
That's a great question.
Yeah. Or if you see, I mean, you may not.
I see unique patterns in both, but you're right. They deal with the patterns differently. Yeah. Yes, there's definitely more suppression and shame when it comes to men than women.
Yeah, and that's all because of the societal stigma and how boys are raised, really. I mean, it's kind of changing a little now, but I almost think we're going too far to the soft side in teaching boys. But I think a lot of boys, a lot of men, at least, my generation were taught, you suck it up, you act like a man, you don't cry, don't be a girl, don't be a sissy, just move on and that kind of thing. So I think a lot of men, now the message is changing so much, and there are men's coaches out there and there are people saying, you've got to feel, you've got to do all these things. But I think for a lot of men, especially, older men, that's a really hard thing to do.
Yes, I actually am working with a couple of men. There's a lot of shame, and they want to connect with the opposite sex emotionally, but they just don't know how to be emotional. It seems like they shut down that part of them. It's so beautiful to see them actually start connecting with their heart and start talking more. Like some of my coaching clients is like, okay, schedule time this week to actually connect from your heart. It's all a practice, right? They've practiced for so long not to connect from the heart, and now with practice they can.
Yeah, and that's so wonderful. And I just, for those of you who may be listening or watching, and whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't matter, but for those of you who maybe have been taught or just have on their own suppressed so many things. Don't share your feelings. Maybe you feel you're a burden. Maybe you feel you don't want to get stressed out. I mean, whatever it may be. But for those of you who have done that, it is so freeing to work with someone like Linda and learn how simple it is to just get in touch with those emotions and be able to let them go. I think there's such a fear that once you let them out, so to speak, and face them, that they're going to control you, that they're going to dominate you and you'll be frozen, right? Stagnant. But what she teaches is a way to move past that. So you can still feel them, which is what you need to do, and learn how to control them and move on, which is really a beautiful thing. And if you are listening to this and you're thinking, wow, I haven't really dealt with these things. Maybe you're going through a divorce and you think, I haven't dealt with this feeling of inadequacy or this feeling, this fear of being alone or whatever it may be, or financially supporting myself. Well, there's so many things that you may be feeling, but realize that you can meet with Linda and you can learn how to do this so you can have more control over your feelings and just the way that you feel in general, right?
Right. And as you were saying that, I think the difference is for women, it's easier for them to speak from their heart. For men, it's a lot harder. Like they want, the men that have come to me, they want the connection. They want that heart connection. They want to be vulnerable. They want to express themselves, but they don't know how to. I mean, when you've been raised in a family where, like you said, the man has to be the man and they never saw their father talk about emotions, that's what you learn. But that doesn't mean that's how it's got to be for the rest of your life, because it's not that hard. It just needs practice. It needs awareness and practice. Yeah. Like breaking the strategy down. Because everything we do is a strategy, right? We get up in the morning, we don't think about it, we go brush our teeth, we grab our coffee. But that's the same thing when we're communicating.
Right.
But when you break it down and you start becoming really aware of how you're doing it, and then how you want to do it and keep practicing that, it's not that hard.
Yeah. But I love that you're bringing this awareness, because there are so many people who are not aware and don't even realize that they are, not breathing properly, right? And we talked about the book when we met initially by James Nestor, Breath.
Right.
And I read that book too. I know you have, and that is wonderful. And it was just kind of a whole experience. The author went into this whole experience with his own breath to become aware of it and to learn all these different modalities. And do these work for me? Do they not work for me? And it was really a fascinating story. It was a combination of, science and mental health and knowing oneself and how do I get to know myself and all of that. So if someone hasn't read that book, that's a wonderful book. Really fun, actually. But yes, you are so right. And that's what made me think of it, is when you said it is through the practice that we can do it. And it's just like anything. If you want to be a musician, you have to practice. If you want to be the best at your job, you have to stand in front of the mirror and give speeches to yourself or to your friends and family so you can practice going in front of a crowd. So it's the same kind of thing, and it's not something to be afraid of. It's actually something that you can do. And once you work with Linda and see how simple this can be when you learn to master it and you practice it, it makes a big difference in your life. So thank you.
Thank you. You put it so well.
No, I love that you do this. And again, it's just another thing that a lot of people aren't aware of. So I love bringing awareness to that. And you work with a lot of different types of breath work. And like we talked about, many people aren't aware of them. So how, or not just not aware of them, but how to do them, what the benefits are. Can you go over some of these different types of breath work? I know you talked about yogic breath work, and maybe talk about how they differ and how they can help in the healing process.
Okay. So the yogic breath works, you find them a lot on Insight and a lot of apps. Usually yogic breathworks have longer exhales and holds, and that is really good for your system. The holds and exhales, long exhales, create more carbon dioxide in the body, and that gets absorbed in the bloodstream. Any kind of breath work is really good for the brain, because the brain literally consumes 25% of the oxygen in the body. And if we are not breathing properly, our brain's not working properly.
Okay.
With the dynamic activating breath work, is completely different. The inhales are actually longer and the exhales are shorter. And it's usually through the mouth. So you're getting a lot of oxygen in, and the exhales are very quick and short. And that gets a lot of energy going through the body. What is it? Stan Groff, he came up with holotropic breath right after psychedelics became illegal. I think it was in the 60s or a little bit before. They could have that kind of effect where it's more of an out of body experience, and there's so much energy moving through you, where you remember things or process things that it's hard to process when you're just sitting talking with someone, because at that point you're only in your cognitive mind. But with breath work, it's the best connection, especially with dynamic activating breath work. It's a really great connection to your subconscious mind.
Wow, that's fascinating. It's fascinating that it can have kind of a similar effect as a drug, perhaps.
Oh yeah,
just from doing the breath work.
Our bodies, someone was on social media was saying how our bodies are pharmacies. We can make whatever we need to feel good. We just have to create the environment for our bodies to be able to do that. Because when we are in fight or flight all the time, and as James Nestor said, if we're just shallow breathing and in fight or flight, then the body is constantly in survival mode, and it doesn't have a chance to actually heal. But when we calm our nervous system down and we give it time and space to calm, and then all the healing begins, especially when we do deep diaphragmatic breathing, because the vagus nerve, which is the longest nerve in the body and it's responsible for the parasympathetic nervous system, actually goes through the diaphragm. So when we do diaphragmatic breathing, the vagus nerve gets activated, and it's a connection message. They start, it's connected to every organ in your belly, your digest. So when we do deep diaphragmatic breathing, your digestive system starts working better. The vagus nerve starts communicating with the organs in your body, and your brain giving it message, okay, what do I need to fix? What's going on with the liver? What's going on with the kidney? But if we're shallow breathing and we're just breathing here and back up over and over again, and the vagus nerve is barely activated and we're constantly in fight or flight, the body's like holding on. Okay, I need to, it's just trying to survive. So it's really important that we create time every day to bring our nervous system back to baseline. So we could think clearly, we could, be able to appreciate life, come out of that fight or flight.
Do you think there's a specific time of day that's better than another time of day for that? To sit and just be with your breath?
When I was going through my breathwork trainings, we had to practice in the morning and evening. So I think that's a great practice. And I highly recommend maybe even starting with 2 minutes, because I remember I would just tell myself, I'm going to start with 20, 30 minutes. And then it was such a big chunk of time that I didn't even do it. So even 2 minutes, and then if you could extend it afterwards, you feel so calm, you can extend it for another minute. Another book written by, I forgot her name, Patricia Gelberg. Her and her husband are psychiatrists, and they have a clinic on the East Coast. They wrote the book, The Healing Power of the Breath. And they actually started prescribing breathwork to their clients. And their prescription was 20 minutes of coherent breathing in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon for the first 3 months. That sort of brings the anxiety level to a baseline, and then 20 minutes once a day thereafter. And they, in their research, people were getting off their medication, anxiety medication. So,
wow, that's amazing.
Yes,
Wow.
breath work is powerful, very powerful.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I love, for me, morning time before I do anything else when I wake up, because it's quiet and the brain's not activated at 1,000,000 miles an hour quite yet. There's not things coming at you and, oh, I'll just do that later because I got a call or I've got to send this email out or whatever it is. So I love that. And I also love right before bed, because same thing. I just turn lights down, just take some time to just breathe and just sit and feel grateful. And that was a game changer for me when I was going through my divorce as well, was just, the meditation, and also stopping myself when I'm realizing that I'm, because I would make myself aware if I was shallow breathing, if I'm trying to get through something and I just like, and I think, oh my gosh, I need to stop this. I need to calm down. I need to breathe, hold my breath, let it out. And so it makes a huge difference. I know that from experience. So it's wonderful. Would you lead us in a little breath exercise so everybody can see how wonderful this can be?
Sure. So let's start with coherent breathing. Coherent breathing is the breath work that the psychiatrists that I was talking to you about prescribe to their clients on the East Coast. And how coherent breathing works is if you inhale for 6 counts and exhale for 6 counts, that's 5 breaths per minute. So it's literally called 5 breaths per minute. However, I usually started with breathing in for 3 counts, exhaling for 3, and then eventually go up to 4, then 5, then 6. Because I found that when people are really active out here and then they want to start with 6, it might be too much. So let's do that one. Does that sound good?
Perfect. Let's do it.
All right. So I'd like you, actually, before we start, I want to give you one more tip. In order to be able to increase your breath capacity, I highly recommend doing a yogic breath work, which is called Ujjayi breath, where you close half of your throat. And just imagine if I take a glass of water and I just take a big swig, I could only drink so much, right? But if I take a glass of water and then I constrict my throat and I start taking small sips, I could finish the whole glass of water, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing with breath. If I take a big breath in through the nose, that's going to be it. But if we want to increase our breath capacity, then we need to close half of, constrict our throat and start breathing in slowly and sipping in that air. Bring the breath in all the way down into the belly and stack it up into the heart and throat, and then exhaling slowly. So now we can begin. So I'd like you to close your eyes and notice the tension around your jaw and neck. And as you exhale, allow your shoulders to drop, your jaw to drop. Another inhale, bringing your breath all the way down to your feet. Maybe rooting your feet into the ground. And as you exhale, relax one more layer. Now we'll begin by inhaling for 3 counts and exhaling for 3. At any point, if that doesn't feel right for you, go back to your normal breathing. There's no pushing here. So closing your mouth, inhale through your nose with your throat slightly closed all the way down into your belly and filling up your heart. And exhaling through the nose. Inhale and exhale. Relax. Inhale and exhale. Inhale fully, belly, heart, throat. Exhale, relaxing your shoulders, neck, jaw. One more inhale for 3 counts. Exhaling for 3. And this time we're going to inhale for 4, 2, 3, 4, and exhale. Inhale, slowing down your breath. And exhale, relax your body. In and out. One more inhale all the way down to your tailbone, filling up your whole torso. And as you exhale, relax, relax, relax. Next inhale, let's go for 5. Inhaling, slowing down your breath, filling up your heart all the way to your throat. And exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, constricting your throat, filling up. And exhale. Inhale, sipping in air. And exhale. In. Exhale. And one more time, inhaling through your nose, bringing that breath into your belly, further up into your rib cage, heart, throat. Exhaling ever so slowly. And going back to your normal breath, Breathing into your heart. Noticing how your body is vibrating. Bringing in light and compassion into every cell in your body. And whenever you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes.
That was wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Did you feel relaxed?
I do. I feel so relaxed right now. I feel like taking a nap.
I know. It doesn't take very long.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. This has been really educational. And again, this is the first part of the Breathwork for Divorce Healing. And this is the awareness portion. And I hope you'll join us for part 2 and learn some more. So thank you, Linda, for being my guest today.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I really appreciate you.
Yeah. And if you enjoyed this podcast and any of the others, please do me the biggest honor of subscribing to this channel, liking and sharing with those who may need a little push in their own healing journey, as well as comments. I love your comments. So thank you for joining us today. And thank you again to Linda.
Thank you.
Bye.